Let's touch on this Doge-1 project. It seems to be an area of murky understanding. And people aren't really most people have no idea what the Doge-1 project actually is when it comes down to it, who's behind it, who's responsible for it, who's spearheading it, and what it is exactly. Could you maybe just generally expound on your knowledge of it?
So the Doge-1 project is, as I understand it, being done by the Geometric Energy Corporation, who are a Canadian company. I believe they're some sort of startup incubator. So they have paid for this in Dogecoin, which is very cool. But we heard about it from going into the news first.
Yes.
I am not certain what exactly they are doing, and it is curiously difficult to get details on what they are launching. Although it looks like they are basically putting some sort of sensor package into orbit around the moon. I'm not certain. It's a little confusing to find out what they're up to, and I don't know if that's because they've got some sort of super secret plan, or quite what is going on there. I mean, honestly, we have limited bandwidth, and I have just sort of not really tracked that closely.
Interesting. So just to be clear to the audience, the Doge core dev team has no involvement in the Doge-1 project, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, see, just on that, on its face, there just seems to be from, I'd just say particular outlets and have been kind of purposely or unintentionally kind of conflating the association between Doge-1 and the Doge core team. So it's good to get a little bit more clarification on that. And when I looked into this a little bit further, Ross, it appears that the company that's predominantly quarterbacking this project seems to have been doing a fair amount of fundraising, I would say, off of the Doge-1 project. When I looked into it further, it's kind of unclear to what and how much of the donations are actually going towards the Doge-1 project. Do you think it's possible the technology company that's quarterbacking the Doge-1 project could be just in part using the label of Doge-1 to raise funds in general for their company and other projects perhaps outside of this one?
I think that's a reasonably safe conclusion. And in particular, I think you have to look at why as a company use that name Doge-1 if we haven't seen them in the space before. And the obvious answer is it's a promotional tool. They've seen the popularity of Doge and they've decided to go with that. And I don't inherently have a problem with that, but I think there is I think it is leading to confusion. And obviously, yeah, people do think that we're involved, and we're not tracking it. We're not, we haven't done any sort of due diligence on the company. And certainly, I mean, I'm hoping that it's going to turn out that they do something really exciting and amazing. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it is obviously, I don't think it's at all controversial to say that they are using the name Doge-1 to get attention to their company. They are a company that does start-up projects, as I understand it, and they will be using it to raise funding for those, unless I'm very mistaken.
They come again. They start what kind of projects?
So as I understand it, they're either a startup incubator or they are in some other way raising funds for a number of projects. So it's not just Doge-1. They look like they're trying to run a number of projects, but it's not really clear at all what these are. I'm actually sort of sitting in a chat, so I'll paste, if I can, I'll paste a link to the company and people can look at the website. Or actually, maybe I shouldn't. But yeah, if you Google Geometric Energy Company,
yes,
you can look at the website, and I think there is a vagueness to what they're doing that I find interesting. Actually, I'm going to jump on a tangent there.
Go for it.
The other thing that I find really interesting is we've had this other company. I'm not going to name them because it will give them more credit. But people have then decided they're also Dogecoin developers, and I'm a bit, why have you decided that? Because they've just turned up and started pulling in funding, And a bunch of journalists have gone, oh, great, they're developers and they're working in the Dogecoin space. That makes them Dogecoin developers. I went, not as far as we're submitting any code. So I think it's a really good general lesson about, watch out that there are companies out there that want to raise funds. Not necessarily bad, but be proactive in asking what do they do, what's the goal, how's it going to work, this sort of thing. And I think, particularly in the crypto space, there's a lot of people who, there's a lot of projects and a lot of enthusiasm to just jump into things, and a definite sort of feeling of FOMO, where I would be much more, take it slow, look at what a company is offering and doing, and suddenly, like, controversially, like if another company wants to come on and say they're going to raise funds and then do Dogecoin development, I'm not going to say they can't, but I am going to say to people, understand who the company is, and before you give them your money, think, if they've run off with it, how do I track them down? How do I get that back? I think that would be the two things I say. I mean, I'd love to see someone in a decentralized way just go, actually, we're going to do it. We're just going to just do development. And I think it's really interesting because I know some of the community and many of my code contributors would not want to just see an arbitrary team pop up and start doing stuff. But for me, unless that's a viable option, then it's not properly decentralized. So it's important that that's always an option. But then I think I get more excited by the technology, and that's just a different angle on it.
Yeah, I have to say, because I did a bit of snooping around in the Geometric Energy Corporation myself, and the first thing I noticed was one of the exact same things that you made note of there. There's a certain level of ambiguity and vagueness about their website and exactly what it is that they do, that I find both curious and perplexing and eyebrow raising, frankly. Usually companies that have websites with those particular attributes can often be responsible for things that aren't particularly positive. I'll just say that. So you think that's fair to say?
Yes, and I think, in particular, it's something that if the company wants to come back and say, well, actually, we're doing X, Y, Z, then we'd love to see that on the website. And I always hope that anyone funding a company like this is doing extensive due diligence, and maybe there's detailed slide decks that are behind the scenes and I'm not seeing, and I want to keep an open mind about it, but I am a little bit cautious, certainly. Yeah.
Thank you for that.